Hi, this is an editor's note 2 years after having recorded and edited this video. Yes, you heard that right. This video was supposed to go out in August 2023, but it's been sitting in my Premiere Pro archive since then in hopes to see the light of day when the world gets a little bit better, but holy shit, that's not happening anytime soon. So I might as well just go ahead and put this video out already. Now, the only purpose of putting this video out is to release myself of the depths and the dark chains of my Premiere Pro archives and nothing else. I really cannot stay in that place anymore, so I have to get this video out and move on with my life. I'm sure you're aware a lot has happened since August 2023, and all of that led to me putting off uploading this video, specifically because I felt so juvenile talking about the land that was used for the Manhattan Project in the Oppenheimer movie in the later part of this video, since 2023 was the year an actual genocide started in the world. But as I said, I want to release myself, so please take the context of this video being 2 years old as you watch, and resources to help with what's going on in the world are in the description. Free Palestine is a no word on YouTube, but I really don't care. I just had to get that out of the way before this video started. So thank you for clicking, and let's get on to the video. Oh god, here we go. This one's gonna be a wild ride. Problematic for many, an enigma for most, but life-changing for all. July 21st, 2023 will go down in history as the day that changed the course of cinematic history forever. Now, obviously, I'm well aware that I'm very late to the Barbenheimer party and that pretty much everybody else on the internet who wanted to speak about these movies has already spoken about them, but I still wanted to make a video about Barbie and Oppenheimer because I think the internet moves on too quickly, first of all. What's with that? It's just barely been a month. Can people breathe? Okay. And also, these movies are still relevant, and I think they will continue to stay relevant for a really, really long time. With the numbers we are seeing, it's safe to say that both of these movies have been massive successes across the globe. Barbie and Oppenheimer are not just two movies that have coincidentally launched together, but are a force of nature to be reckoned with. Like the movie gods have come down upon us. This is the future. This is cinema. This is the cure to... I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm absolutely kidding. And that was an exaggeration, but was it really? I mean, people went crazy for this phenomena called Barbenheimer. It has its own Wikipedia page and it's being called the peak of cinema. Of course, I have watched both of these movies and I plan to many times over because I just couldn't be more excited about being alive at the same time as Barbenheimer. But I have seen so much nonsense and bullshit criticisms coming in from people that have just completely missed the point with both of these movies. And so this video is going to be an in-depth defense, analysis, but mostly fangirling for Barbie and Oppenheimer, and an attempt to understand that now that we've reached the supposed peak of cinema, where do we go from here? Hi everyone, it's Ash. Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everybody that watched my last video, liked, comment, or engaged with it in any way. I cried when the view count went over 100, and now the fact that the sub count is over 100 is just... I hope you like my future videos as well, and also, very appropriately, I'm all dolled up for this video. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I would just like to give a huge disclaimer to everybody watching that I love both of these movies. And if you disagree, that's okay. We are all entitled to our own opinions. But I love these movies. Both Barbie and Oppenheimer have been some of the most exciting movie experiences I've had in my whole life, which I'm sure a lot of you non-idiots can relate to. Not even just the viewing experience, but everything that has come along with these movies, like the adorable interviews with the actors, the cute trends and the outfit inspirations, the memes, the songs and the soundtracks. And of course, the pink.
Pink.
Bitch!
Pink.
I have always been a huge movie buff. I come from a long line of movie enthusiasts that go crazy over new launches that we are excited about. That's actually the reason why I started this channel in the first place. And so every movie viewing experience is special in its own way, even if the movie is bad. Especially if the movie is bad. But oh god, were both of these movies simply extraordinary. And the only other time I can remember feeling this excited about a movie was probably when I was 4 years old and Polar Express had just come out. Yes, I have a really good memory. Okay, shh. Polar Express had just released and my dad took me and my brother to watch it in IMAX 3D in the only IMAX 3D theater in the entire country. I remember everything. I remember the sounds, I remember the scenes, I remember the characters, I remember the smells. It's still one of my fondest childhood memories to this day. And while I do have some criticisms for both of these movies myself, I wanted to discuss some of the ones that I saw online that I feel like are very unjust and unfair. And I also wanted to bring focus on some of the parts that I absolutely loved about both of these movies. So grab a snack and...
Get in, loser, we're going beach.
BRB Mom, Regina's here! Love her, bitch.
Okay, let me start off by saying something that needs to be said out loud and very, very clearly, and what I'm not hearing enough of in any of the reviews. Barbie's just cool, man. She's just really fucking cool, okay? Barbie has got to be one of the most fun, beautiful, and mindfully created movies I have seen in my whole life, and it deserves all of the love that it's getting. I'm gonna be honest, on my first watch of the movie, I completely missed the last 30 minutes of the film, and before I watched those last 30 minutes, I wasn't feeling completely in love with Barbie. In fact, before I watched those last 30 minutes of the film, I actually had a lot of qualms with the movie, but we'll get to that in a second. You see, I did not grow up with Barbie. In fact, she was one of the last toys I would ever pick to play with. I always went for something a bit more impersonal like clay, candle wax, forks, butter knives, plastic, or literal mud. And as I reached the age where it was not socially acceptable to play with these things anymore, which mud is cool, I was sort of fully bullied into playing with toys that were meant for little boys. All the boys around me would make fun of the girls that were playing with the dolls. They would say things like, Barbies are not cool, they're too much, too pink, too childish, too annoying, too girly. You've definitely seen the just girly things meme on the internet, and we always as a collective make fun of the pick me girl. But it's true what they say about every joke having some essence of truth behind it. Barbie was just too girly when I was a child, and being too girly meant that I wasn't cool enough to play with my brothers. I wasn't cool enough to be one of the boys. I simply was not cool enough. And for a preteen back in 2012, you would much rather be the pick-me girl than the girl being picked on. And so I trashed all my Barbie dolls and clung onto my brother's old Transformer figurines for dear life. I watched Dragon Ball Z and pretended to enjoy cricket matches. And while today I am genuinely interested in a lot of these things that are considered traditionally boyish, back then, I just really wanted to play with my Barbie. That girly girl became a tomboy to fit in, and soon she was a teenager.
Oh no!
And all that teenage angst started to target the other girly girls. Girls that did not see a problem with being outwardly feminine became a problem for me because they challenged my very understanding of girlhood by simply being themselves. And I hated it. It was uncomfortable, it made me so self-conscious, and it was just... But it was never really about them. It was about this internalized hatred I had within me for everything girly, like the word in itself was an insult. I projected that hate toward everything soft and sweet and kind and feminine and pink in a bad attempt to deny myself from embracing my own femininity. The patriarchy stole from me and many other girls alike the opportunity to be our girly selves. Then enter Barbie. Everything we antagonized as little girls in bold, bright, pink glitter on the big screen. Barbie gave us the opportunity to let that little girl from earlier know she wasn't too much of anything and that being girly was not an insult. I feel like the timing of Barbie releasing this year is just so perfect, given the fact that this is around the same time where a lot of girls who grew up being really uncomfortable and hating their own femininity are embracing it all over again through various art forms, styling choices, reclaiming Taylor Swift after hating on her for so long as young girls, reclaiming 2000s chick flicks after shaming everybody who used to watch them, even though we secretly did ourselves, and it's like fodder for our deficient brains who crave love and sweet endings and happy fairy tales. Even the color pink that had been stolen from us for so long due to our dear old friend the patriarchy. Barbie is kind of the reclamation of our girlhood for a lot of younger millennials and older Gen Z who grew up trying to hide their love for her. And I think that we are the target demographic for this movie for that very reason. That's why you're seeing so many of us getting all dolled up and rushing to the theaters to watch this movie with all of our girlfriends. But it's not just a movie for us. It's a movie for everybody. Barbie is an open invitation for all, and I love it for that. Everything from the story, the acting, the set designs, the makeup, the outfits, the songs, and the sound score. This movie simply does not miss a beat. Aside from some plot holes here and there and some scenes that I feel like could have been executed a little bit better, I really thought this movie was not going to have any bad reviews until that Ben Shapiro video. Never have I wanted to beat up a little man more. And it's not just him. There are so many people that are calling this movie too woke, too problematic, too political, and we're going to get into some of those criticisms in a second. But before that, I just wanted to discuss something that I feel like is going to help us understand better what the creators of this movie were trying to achieve. When I was in college, I wrote a play called Flipped. It was a theatrical universe where the gender roles were reversed, meaning men were treated like women and women were treated like men. It was an exaggerated overview of gender stereotypes in our real world, and I was a stupid 16-year-old when I wrote the play, but I think this play was the reason why I understood so clearly what the creators of this movie were trying to do. In that flipped universe, the women did the catcalling, the men were all house husbands and did the cooking and cleaning. It was overall my attempt to speak about a social stigma in a light-hearted and comedic way, just poking fun at the struggles of both men and women under our patriarchy. And it did just that. It was a fun watch for all, watching the girls holler at the boys and the boys acting all shy and coy as they were courted for an arranged marriage. Towards the end of the play though, the male lead gives birth to a male child. Everybody in the hospital room gasps as this is announced. The female lead, who's just become a mother, asks the nurse to get rid of the baby because in this universe, male children are considered a burden, the exact opposite of how female children are viewed in the real world. Now, you may think this a ridiculous exaggeration, but I wrote this play 3 days after watching the news of a female baby disposed of in a trash bag, dead for the crime of being born a girl. Female foeticide had been the leading cause of the low man-to-woman ratio in my country for an exceedingly long amount of time. And while today things have changed and the number of deaths caused by this, let's be honest, epidemic have been reduced by a lot because of the laws that were put into place, I still think we have such a long way to go as a society. And if this seems too far-fetched and unbelievable to you, just look up any one of the videos of a gender reveal where it's announced that it's going to be a girl. The look of disappointment on the fathers' faces should tell you that this is more relevant of a problem today than you might think it is. And this is also why when people like Penny Boy here say that women pretend to be the victim all the time, that the patriarchy does not exist and that these are all first world issues, it makes me want to roll my eyes to a superhuman extent. Damn, we got really serious for a second, but that's how we roll. That's how we roll. And I say all that to say the Barbie movie did the same thing. Flip the gender roles over to show you just how ridiculous these stereotypes are for both the genders in a fun, easy to understand and comedic way. Yeah, I hope this has given you a better understanding of what this movie was trying to do. And I think it's time to move on to the criticisms, starting with Barbie is man-hating woke-feminist propaganda. I feel like this criticism is coming from people that aren't supposed to watch this movie in the first place because it's PG-13. How did your mommy let you watch this movie? Aren't you like 12? The creators of this movie have put in too much time and effort to make sure that everybody, and I mean everybody, feels represented by this movie for you to just go out there and say this is man-hating garbage. I'm gonna be honest, initially I too did not like the He's Just Ken posters, but if you have actually watched this movie, Greta Gerwig has done such an exceptional job at showing us the struggles of both women and men under the patriarchy without ever villainizing either one of those genders. That in itself feels like an impossible task to do, but was done so well. And it's sad because I knew already that there couldn't have been much done to avoid these man-hating criticisms from coming in, because these people made up their mind about this movie before they ever stepped into the theater. And I just quickly want to say that I love Ken. I love Ken so much. Don't let this fool you. I am Ken. Ken is me. I love Ken's character so much. He might be my favorite character aside from Barbie, just because he's so kind and sweet and naive. Not stupid, naive, and just such a hopeless romantic, and I feel represented. I feel so seen. Both Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie have done such an amazing job with these characters and have literally brought them to life. I love both Barbie and Ken so much. The fact that people were able to look at Ken's arc of going from living under Barbie's shadow in a place that's literally called Barbie Land to him finally feeling like he's important in the real world, so much so that he brings back his very superficial understanding of patriarchy back to Barbie Land, him realizing that the patriarchy does more harm to both him and the Barbies than he initially realized, him struggling to understand his worth without Barbie in his life, to him finally realizing he's enough. People were able to look at this and call this movie anti-men. Ken has such a huge character development arc throughout the entirety of the movie that towards the end he realizes his identity despite of what he's been told his whole life. And the same goes for Barbie. Barbie goes from her perfect life in Barbie Land where everything is perfect and superficial and plastic, when suddenly everything flips upside down as she starts to have thoughts about death and has a full-blown existential crisis. She goes from her perfect fairy tale everyday life in Barbie Land to the real world, where the delusion about what kind of impact she has had there shatters and it absolutely destroys her. Her story is one of understanding her place in both Barbie Land and in the real world, of embracing change and of being brave enough to explore what terrifies you. But no, we're gonna instead take this scene of this 15-year-old girl calling Barbie a fascist, which wasn't it obvious that this was satire of the woke female supremacy warriors on Twitter? Anyway, we're gonna take this scene, we're gonna zoom in, and we're going to miss the point completely. and another successful day of being an idiot. And while we're on the topic of man-hating themes, there's another scene in the movie which so many people had a problem with, where after the Ken War and after the Barbie Constitution is reinforced in Barbie Land, one of the Ken asks the President Barbie, "Hey, can we have a seat in the Supreme Court as well?" And the President Barbie replies with, "No, but maybe later." Again, everything is open for interpretation, but this is literally followed with the narrator saying, maybe one day Kens will have as much power in Barbie Land as women do in the real world. It's satire, my dude. And here's another criticism that I saw for the movie that doesn't make any sense to me, that the film's depiction of the real world was overly exaggerated to be evil, and that Ken's patriarchy in Barbie Land was romanticized. Okay. Do you really think this movie's depiction of the real world was too exaggerated? Or are you just upset that your oblivion to any issues that do not concern you personally was called out by a movie about a doll? Tough pill to swallow, huh? Ask any woman who's ever been harassed or catcalled, which is unfortunately most of us, how exactly it happened, and you will know that this movie's depiction of the real world is not too far from the truth, except for minor exaggerations here and there, because it's supposed to be camp. I need to. And for those saying that Barbie's depiction of something as deep and as political as the patriarchy was superficially limited to horses and Mojo Dojo Casa House, which I so want one, by the way, and that the Barbies seemed happier in Ken's patriarchy because one Barbie said, "It's nice to take a break from being perfect all the time." My brethren in Christ, did we forget that this is a movie about dolls? Ken won't smack a Barbie's ass after bringing patriarchy back to Barbie Land because these dolls don't have genitalia. They do not have any familiarity with a sexual attraction. Plus, the reason behind this depiction is also so mindful because it goes to show you that to a doll that's never experienced anything like it, this is what the patriarchy can be boiled down to. And just goes to show you again how superficial both the social constructs of patriarchy and matriarchy are and just how much harm they can do. Even Ken's end monologue, where he complains about the sizes of the mini fridges, should tell you everything you need to know about the ironic genius of this movie. If Ken verbalizing that he feels fake and suffocated under the patriarchy didn't already. But aren't the Barbies supposed to be smart or something? So how can you explain them being brainwashed by Ken unless they really wanted to be like that? And how could a speech about how bad women have it in the real world break them out of that spell? Okay, again, the Barbie world is meant to be a satire of the real world. Remember what I said about the pick-me girl being somewhat based in reality? It's the same principle. These dolls, even though are very accomplished and successful women in Barbie Land, are meant to portray how internalized misogyny can make even the most successful of women blindsided to its ridiculousness. And again, people love calling this movie disconnected from reality and that it's too exaggerated and too camp. But just look at what happened with Hailey Bieber and Selena Gomez. Like, these two women were made villains in a story whose main character was Justin Bieber, and he wasn't even brought up that often. That's a prime example of how ridiculous misogyny is. And the reason why that speech from America Ferrera broke the Barbies out of that spell was because only the realization that you're within a system and that your actions could possibly be perpetuating it can help you break free. This honestly could not be truer for the real world as well. Lastly, another criticism I saw for this movie was that the mother-daughter relationship felt very superficial and that it was not engaging enough. And I can understand where this is coming from, but honestly, the mother-daughter relationship was one of the most beautiful parts of the entire movie for me. Throughout the first half of the movie, I didn't really feel either way about the mother-daughter relationship we were seeing on screen, but that scene where Barbie meets the creator of the Barbie doll, Ruth, who explains to her that Barbie was a creation for her daughter Barbara and says the line that mothers stand still so their daughters can look back and see how far they've gone. That broke me. Now, I'm anyway a crybaby, but it was this scene that made me realize that what we're seeing is not just a superficial portrayal of this very complex bond. It made me realize that up until this exact scene, I could not really empathize with this relationship or really care about it, honestly, because it was being shown through the mother's perspective. And obviously, I'm not a mother, except for that one secret child I have hidden somewhere. But in this second half of the movie, the scene between Ruth and Barbie made me tear up because this very familiar and conflicting feeling of daughter's guilt overcame me. This is honestly what most mother-daughter relationships are like. And after hearing that dialogue, I was ridden with this guilt of being the perfect daughter my mother always wanted me to be. All her dreams, all her aspirations, everything she could have ever wanted for herself but she never got, she made sure that I would never have to struggle for any of it growing up. So this scene, and particularly this dialogue, makes all the mothers that are watching this movie feel accomplished and happy and proud that their daughters could have everything they wanted for themselves. But it fills the daughters with this really hollow feeling and it makes us cry. It's the guilt of living your mother's dreams. It's the pain and fear of progressing so much while your mother stands still, just giving her all to make sure you get everything you could ever dream of. And it's one of the most painful feelings in the world. That's why girls like me cried at the theater after watching this scene, because we know no matter how hard we try, we are never going to be able to give back to our mothers what was taken away from them. Me and my mother argue all the time. We fight, we yell, we scream at each other like it's the end of the world, because we are mirror reflections of each other, both the good and the bad parts, and that really throws us off. But even the thought of leaving my mother behind as my life goes on, it is so painful. And it's absolutely no surprise that Greta Gerwig was able to show us this complicated relationship in just these few scenes, because she is such a talented storyteller when it comes to this mother-daughter relationship in movies. Just have a look at Lady Bird. Ultimately, I am 100% sure that there's a whole lot more that I have missed about this movie that makes it an absolute masterpiece. And there are also a few things that I didn't quite like about the movie, like the plot hole about how Barbie Land and the real world are connected not really making much sense. Ken's mistreatment. Like, I get it. Okay, I get it. Like, he brought the patriarchy back to Barbie Land, but like, can we just chill? Like, he's so sweet and kind and naive. And I know I'm projecting. Can I have this much? This is my video, so please. The de-yassification of Barbie as she becomes a human and enters the real world. Like, okay, I get it. I'm 100% sure that there was a really good like color theory reason behind it, or there's like subtle like or something like that went over my Neanderthal brain. But could she have just kept one cute outfit? Just one cute outfit? Okay. And of course, my biggest criticism of all we cannot forget Mattel's hypocrisy of producing this huge budget film about female empowerment and yay, go girls, while the real women workers working in Mattel's factories are going to be overworked and underpaid in what I am 100% sure is going to be an increased demand for Barbie dolls and more Mattel toys across the globe after this movie has come out, and more movies and more theme parks and more toys I'm sure are going to come out. But yeah, I'm only shaming Mattel for that, nobody else. It's only Mattel. So yeah, I think Barbie is a beautiful, fun masterpiece, and I would recommend everybody to watch it at least once. It's a fun watch. Come on, even if you hate the themes and if you hate the politics, it's a fun watch. It's cute. Okay, enough. I'm gonna stop talking about Barbie and let's move on to Oppenheimer. Thought I'd switch it up a little bit for ya. I'm serving you Hela, Norse goddess of death energy, given that we're talking about Oppenheimer. Is that problematic? That might be problematic. Well, okay, obviously my review / defense for Oppenheimer is not going to be as extensive as it was for Barbie, given the fact that this movie is just not as critically acclaimed as Barbie is, and also because I personally don't have that many criticisms for Oppenheimer. I have loved this movie so much that I have gone to watch it twice already because it is such an immersive viewing experience. And yes, the criticisms that this movie is a little bit historically inaccurate, that there are some really significant historical events and people that have been glossed over in the film, the use of sacred scripture during a scene, and the erasure of minority history from the movie. These are all valid criticisms and I get it. But also at the same time, there is so much that I love about this movie. And we are going to get into the criticisms, but before any of that, about the Native American lands that are being discussed. Although there is conflicting historical evidence about the inhabitant status of Los Alamos, or Site Y, the site which was used to construct the community for researching and building the atomic bombs, let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if this land was taken away from its rightful indigenous owners without really giving them any proper compensation for it. History is important, but I personally am a strong proponent for doing everything that can be done in the present for the betterment of the future. And a fight for their rights and their land is still an ongoing struggle for many indigenous communities in America. And you and I can help by donating to any one of the many charities and funds that are dedicated to these communities, one of which is the Native American Rights Fund, which I'm adding a link to in the description box below. If you or anyone you know is in the capacity to help, I would suggest checking that link out. And yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way before we even start discussing the movie. Now, as I said earlier, most accounts of the inhabitant status of Los Alamos are true to what was shown in the movie. In the movie, Robert Oppenheimer picks Los Alamos to be the site for Project Y, stating that it doesn't have that many inhabitants and that there's only one boys' school and a Native American burial site. Again, that in itself is a little bit sketchy to me, because if there aren't that many inhabitants over there, why is there a boys' school? Why? Moving on. This is more or less true for American Prometheus, the 2006 Pulitzer Prize winning book which inspired this movie and is also an amazing read about the life of Oppenheimer. I would really recommend it. But most stories from people that were residents at Los Alamos disagree with these accounts completely, saying that they were forced to evacuate from Los Alamos. Their homes were bulldozed over, their livestock was shot, and they were given just 48 hours to evacuate without any proper compensation. This information is missing from most media about the Manhattan Project, but this was the 1940s, and as I said earlier, I really wouldn't be surprised if this is actually the case. But in my opinion, and this is in no way trying to erase the history of the indigenous people in Los Alamos, I think that just adding a simple line that stated the true status of that place would have been sufficient in the movie. Like a simple line about, hey, you know, there are people living over here. It's not like this is completely isolated, but our research and the building of our bomb is much more significant to daddy government. So, these people are gonna have to. This would have sufficed, but I'm going to contradict myself again and say that I understand why this was not included in the movie. Again, I would have preferred that they did do this, but I do understand why this was not done, because this movie is a subjective view of the life of Robert Oppenheimer. It's not about the land, it's not about the other people involved in the project, it's not about anybody else but this one man. There were so many other significant historical events and people and just things that have been glossed over in this movie, and it's completely understandable because it's about the life of this one man. Like the lack of mention of the other really significant theoretical physicists who were involved in building the bomb, or the actual bombings of Japan that were compacted to these really short scenes where the discussion about the site for the bomb dropping is done so casually, when in reality this is such heavy subject matter. But I think that this was an accurate depiction of what this must have been like in real life, because I for sure know that the people that are involved in making these decisions are always going to be disconnected from the reality and the intensity of a world war because they are not in the front line. That's what makes it so easy for them to not pick a site for a literal bomb drop. Well, because they had honeymoon there, and that would just be a shame. And you should go there next summer because it's so pretty and it's so cute. Here's this man, okay, this prodigious genius who in his naivety thinks that building an atomic weapon is going to help stop a world war. And yes, using the word naivety might be a bit of a stretch here, but in all honesty, that's what I think it was. Naivety that led him to believe that his actions are for the greater good of the world. Because given the circumstances, the building of a bomb was inevitable. We can see that in the movie as well. It was just a matter of who did it first. And this is the reason why I don't understand why people are calling this movie a glorification of Robert Oppenheimer's life. You are not blindsided as an audience member in the Oppenheimer movie. You get to see every aspect of this man, the good, the bad, the fact that he was a womanizer, the fact that he cheated, the fact that he had mental disorders, the fact that he tried to poison his professor's apple, the fact that he was struggling so much. This brilliant man who was excellent at his job but was equally suffering and imperfect and flawed as you and me. It just goes to show this movie has done an outstanding job at telling us the story in a very unbiased way. I'm not a physicist and neither am I a prodigy, but this movie makes it impossible for you to not put yourself in Oppenheimer's shoes and view everything through his eyes, forcing you to understand the logic behind his actions. Like you would have done the same thing if you were in his position. I believe we are all the outcomes, not victims, of our circumstances. And that is what this movie felt like. It felt like showing the true reality of Oppenheimer struggling to come to terms with the reality of his actions and their outcomes. Because let's be real, even if we understand the logic and motivation behind his actions and we sympathize with him, the outcome of his actions was still one of the greatest tragedies ever known to man. And the movie shows us this through its highly immersive soundtrack, through its enchanting cinematography, acting that felt so surreal to the point where you feel like you're actually watching these characters played by the real people on screen. Intensity that's built through just chef's kiss direction. And these are all the reasons why Oppenheimer takes the win for the best movie of this year for me. That's mostly because I am a bit of a history and science geek. The very criticisms that people are using against this movie, like the lack of focus on the actual bomb that was being built, which I feel like is unfair because there was plenty of that in the movie, or that most of the movie was actually shot in a courtroom. These are the very reasons why I think this movie is excellent, stealing the focus away from what your audience would most expect from a movie about a man called the father of the atomic bomb, and letting them sit and marinate in the impending and inevitable fear that the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, the little boy bomb, had 64 kilograms of uranium, or what they refer to as the ore in the movie, out of which only 1 kg actually went into fission. All that destruction, all that damage, all that loss of life, because only 0.7 grams of matter actually ended up being converted into energy. Only 0.7 grams. I don't have to tell you that the bombs that exist in the world today, 80 years after that little boy bomb went off in Hiroshima, are much more efficient and much more destructive. And if the repercussions of a bomb that was that inefficient can still be felt in our world today, again, 80 years after that bomb went off, it's safe to say that the next nuclear weapon that's going to be dropped anywhere on Earth, especially given the current political climate, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's safe to say that the next nuclear bombing is going to be the end of the world as we know it. So yeah, that's the reason why Oppenheimer takes the win for the best horror movie of this year for me. It's an amazing, amazing horror. After that extensive review, ultimately I'm just glad I got the opportunity to watch both of these movies in theaters. Criticisms aside, I would just recommend everybody to watch both Barbie and Oppenheimer, because there's so much to learn from both of these movies, and also because they're so enjoyable to watch. It's serendipitous that both of these movies have come out on the same day in the same year, considering the fact that Barbie was launched in the same year as Oppenheimer's security hearing that we see in the film. 1959. And now, 64 years later, we get to watch both of these movies in all their grandeur and excellence. I am, however, concerned about where we go from here. As I said at the start of the video, people are calling Barbenheimer the peak of cinema, the peak of cinematic history, right? And being at a peak means that there have been low points both before and after. And this is evidently true with most recent releases being 5th or 7th or 10th editions of the same original franchises and intellectual property. With talks of another Barbie movie already being in the works, and the fact that Mattel is planning on following in the footsteps of big franchises like Marvel, DC, Disney in taking their already very successful IP and turning it into big budget movies so they can make a profit either way. I am concerned for the future of cinema, but I'm also really excited. I hope that soon we get to see more movies that are not just expansions of age-old IP, and that we as an audience support the directors that are trying to explore new horizons. Okay, let me just back up a little bit here. I'm not saying that every movie that comes from these big franchises of successful comics, toys, etc. that have been converted into big budget movies are trash and they are bad and we should just like ban all of them. No, that's not what I'm saying. Hell, that's how we got all of these superhero movies that we love so much in the first place. All I hope is that these movies stop so heavily relying on nostalgia baiting for getting us into the theaters. I hope that this peak is one of many more we are going to conquer with our movies, and not just a downward sloping slide into more bullshit renditions of original IP. What do you think? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I know it was a long one. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did I miss something? Did I get everything right? Did I get something wrong? If it's something that I got wrong, you're gonna definitely let me know. So yeah, I can't wait to hear it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave a like on this video. I feel so weird saying that shit. I'm sorry. Do what you want to do. Please don't feel obligated. But yeah, it would be great if you did that. Thank you for staying for this long if you have, and that's a wrap. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.